hippie-ish chick stuck in middle suburbia, here to help you navigate your higher spiritual life in a consumer-driven world. Join me for discussions on practical applications of holistic ideals. Hello, everyone. I hope you guys are all doing well and staying healthy and staying safe and trying to use this opportunity of this unprecedented time of just cosmic weirdness to, take this opportunity to make the best of it and read as much as possible and sink down into yourself and just reevaluate the things that you held important for so long and get rid of any distractions that had been holding you back and keeping you from doing the things that you have always dreamt of doing or felt like you were meant to do. I know for me today, I'm sitting outside. I don't know if you can hear the birds or not, but the sky is just this brilliant blue. And, I always love hearing the birds chirping. It just makes me feel so happy. And I've been self-quarantined for the last 2 weeks, and um, it's been rough because I've never not worked except for the birth of my children since I was 14, and I kind of just don't know what to do with myself, and it's just a weird time. And I was talking to my mom about it, and she basically called me a masochist because I just can't sit still, and I just want to go and find some new project to do. But it's been good for me because I'm kind of trying to just sit back and get rid of all the extra crap that I surround myself with, and just kind of reevaluate everything and figure out what it is that I really, really want to do and hone in on that. So I reread one of my favorite books. It's by Marianne Williamson, of course. It's her book called A Woman's Worth. And I have read this book probably 6 or 7 times in the last 20 years. And I always find something different in it and something that resonates with me. And it's just the most beautiful, magnificent book ever. And every time I read it, I feel called home again. And it just feels so lovely and delicious. And so one of the things that caught my attention is in the very beginning, her very first chapter, she says, "Womanhood today is tentative and unsure, a thing defined more by what it isn't than by what it is. For most women, the resistances they encountered as they reached for the sky were so great that their wings have now drooped, and they try no longer." And that's just so sad to me, but yet it still resonated with me because I feel like I did that. I got resistance from certain people in my life who were telling me that I was, you know, not the good wife and too loud and too obnoxious and too opinionated and too conceited. And, it wasn't looked at like I had a healthy self-esteem, but it was considered to be conceited. And so, just kept running into that stigma of, the bitchy, loud, outspoken girl. And so I kind of shrunk and, made myself smaller to appease. And I'm reaching out to people, especially women in this podcast, who have felt that same thing, who have felt, that resistance when you speak out or speak your opinion, and your opinion is different than what other people's is and what the quote unquote societal norm is. You're considered to be a weirdo or a misfit or an outcast or a bitch. And sorry, I'm hoping that this podcast will help you feel like you have a place and you have a home and that you're not the only person that feels that way. But as I was reading through this book, I was just more and more frustrated with myself because I feel like I need to issue a formal and public apology because there's things that I knew innately, and there's things that I learned all along the way throughout my life. And, I chose to suppress that information and suppress that knowledge that I could have been sharing with other people and getting that information out. And I chose not to. I chose to hide who I really was and play small. And I could have been a sounding alarm, or taken the risk to sound like a kook, but I still could have been sounding the alarm and could have potentially informed even just one person on how to take care of themselves in a time like this, or give them the freedom and the permission to be fully who they are, to where they could have made a bigger difference in this world. Even if I didn't make the bigger difference, maybe I could have been the one who empowered someone else to make a bigger difference in this world. But instead, I decided to play small, and I listened to the ill advice of people who were underinformed and undereducated, and, to be quite honest and blunt, underneath me. So today I want to tell you that, especially if you're a female, and this is going to sound kind of arrogant, but if you're the smartest person in the room, or if you're the smartest person in the relationship, stop freaking letting people tell you that you're too bossy, or you're too loud, or you're too conceited, because you're just hurting yourself, and you're hurting the greater good of the world, because you're shrinking yourself and you're hoarding the information that you have inside you, whether it's something that you learned or something that you read or something that you just know inside of you. And, just because it's not what mass media or, everybody else is thinking, that's where the greatest innovators and the greatest philosophers of our time have come from, was just having that confidence in their knowledge and their intelligence and their idea to put that out there and to think differently. I mean, the United States was formed by a very, very small group of people. Less than 20 people came together and decided that they were going to revolt against the British rule. And they did it. They formed an entire country, an entire constitution, an entire different way of life and living, and rules that had never been done before. And I'm sure they thought that there were people that thought that they were crazy and they were kooky and they were ridiculous, but they took a chance and they shot their shot and, formed where we live, the majority of us, where we live today. And, if they had hoarded that information, or they had shrunk small and, gotten, their first negative um, resistance against that, and just said, oh, okay, yeah, it's never been done before, so it can't be done, so just forget it, you're right, sorry, we'll just go back and be back under the British thumb, where would we be today? So, if you have been gifted by God or the universe or Holy Spirit or your higher power or whatever it is you want to believe in, if you have these gifts and this knowledge and this intelligence and these ideas, but yet you don't act upon them, we're basically spitting in the face of our Creator, because we were made to be just as we are. And I feel like as women, we're so quick to hide our outrageous personalities, especially if we're with a partner who is insecure and has low self-esteem, because we don't want to make them feel bad. So, we want to boost their ego, because as women, we're always wanting to make somebody else feel better. And we're always wanting to boost somebody else's egos and lift somebody else up. And too often it's at our own detriment. So instead of outshining our man, we shrink and we hold back and we act demure and prim and proper and act like the good little wife or girlfriend that we're supposed to be, quote unquote, supposed to be. When, if you're with somebody who can't deal with your outrageousness and your intelligence and and your idealism, then they don't deserve you. You deserve to be with someone who's going to challenge you to grow, not challenge you to shrink or cause you to shrink or push back on you and tell you your ideas are ridiculous or stupid. Because none of us are supposed to shrink. We're all put on this earth to be all that we were supposed to be, all that we can be. We're not meant to fit in a box. We're supposed to be the most intelligent life in the universe. And we're going to put ourselves in these tiny little boxes and just say, oh, that's okay. That's how life is supposed to be. And on top of that, you know, we're Americans. So, we're supposed to be this idealistic country and we're supposed to have all these, freedoms and everything like that. And yet we restrict ourselves constantly. And we keep putting ourselves in these confined little prisons and these little tiny boxes just to make somebody else feel better about themselves. You deserve to be with someone who's going to challenge you. And I'm not asking you to be disrespectful, and I'm not asking you to be rude, and I'm not asking you to make somebody else feel like shit just because, yeah, maybe you are smarter than them. But what I'm telling you is that you shouldn't shrink for somebody else's insecurities and self-esteem, because as I've said multiple times, whenever we're doing this stuff to ourselves, we're creating health issues. We're creating depression. We're suffocating ourselves. And at some point, I'm going to get super deep into all of that and what I keep reference to as far as health and autoimmune issues. But for the time being, just understand that you're creating a new stress on yourself because you're trying to conform to be something that you're not. Just like the women in China who used to have to bind their feet to fit into these tiny little geisha shoes because supposedly it make you more feminine if you had smaller feet. You're binding your personality. You're binding the gifts that you were given. You're binding the awesomeness that you are because it's not feminine, because it's not pretty, because it doesn't fit into society's normal standards. Bullshit. Bullshit. There are plenty of men out there who are willing to stand beside you and applaud you and cheer you on for the awesome and amazing person that you are. There's plenty of men out there who are willing to challenge you and push you to be the best that you can be. And, you know, it just blows me away that we allow ourselves to be, you know, shoved into these tiny little boxes and compartments and just shrink ourselves. But because of that, I've been in that situation, and I allowed myself to be put in these little tiny compartments to please other people, to please my mother, to please my grandmother, to please my husband, because, being too loud was embarrassing for him, and being, too, with my ideas too far out there was, I was a weirdo. And, all this time I could have been serving my purpose. But I'm going to look at it on the bright side, and I'm going to look at it as if I hadn't gone through all of that and I hadn't done all that, I wouldn't be able to be here to tell you and to hold your hand and to guide you across the bridge and tell you that you can come out on the other side. If you got something that you need to say to the world, if you got something that you need to contribute to the world, fucking do it. And if people don't like it, they can turn off your podcast, or they can close your book, or they can exit out of your blog, or they can exit out of your website, or they can unfollow you on Instagram and Facebook and Twitter. But there's going to be somebody out there who needs to hear what you have to say. And it is our duty as strong women, as forthcoming women, to be forthright and to be opinionated. It's our duty, even if it's one person that is helped by our message. It's our duty to be that soldier for that one person. I know this was really short, but I just had to get this out there. I highly, highly, highly recommend that you read this book, A Woman's Worth by Marianne Williamson. It is life changing, I promise you, and you will not regret reading it. I hope you'll have an awesome, amazing day, and I'll talk to you soon.